everyone, Chris from Devote December, and today we are really bringing in the heavy hitters here. We have Wendy Lund, who is a mindfulness expert, and she has a course online that I talked about a little bit yesterday, and Annette and I have referenced her ad nauseum because she is the absolute best in the field of what's going on here. I just want to say hello to Wendy, and then we're going to jump right into it. I looked at your course. I have some questions based off of it, but I think there's a lot more to cover, and we could talk all day, but I'm going to try to limit it to my squirrel brain to just a few things here so we can cover. So hello, Wendy, and tell us a little bit about you, your company, the course, yourself. It's all yours.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Well, Spring for Change is why I'm here. Big fan of you and Annette. We met at the Chicago, Illinois Firefighter Peer Symposium a year ago. I am a registered nurse by trade, but taught at a college here in Toronto, paramedics for the past 22 years. I'm a science teacher. About 7 years ago, I started a Master's of Science in Mindfulness Studies and graduated 2 years ago, where I investigated the experience of trauma in first responders. And I was really looking to build a case for why aren't we doing proactive resiliency training with first responders, given the statistics? So while I'm not technically, a first responder, I've been raising them for years. So I've always described myself as a cheerleader of first responders. I speak nationally and internationally. I left my academic career to launch Wellth Management 2 years ago, and now I teach proactive resiliency to corporate and first responders and have trademarked curriculum called Reach for Resiliency based on teaching the art and science of mindfulness, salutogenesis, which is a health promotion focus, and meaning orientation. So that's a little bit about me.
And that's all perfect. And I think that you, Annette, and myself share a few very important things. And the first one is it's what Annette and I both base our companies on, which is you know exactly what the first responders are going through. You have experience in the field. You've taught them, you've interacted with them, and you're not an outsider coming in and trying to teach us something that you think might fit. You know exactly what we're going through. Like you said, you're not a first responder, but let's be honest, you've experienced the trauma that we've experienced through us and with us. And it's a really, really powerful thing to have someone teaching you that knows exactly what they're talking about and what you're doing. So that's enormous. You also have an incredible knack for catchy names, which I pride myself on. Fourth Shift, Annette has Fire SQ, and you have, besides the Wellth Management, which is genius, the misspelling, the respelling of wealth, you have the Reach for Resiliency. You have names of things on your course that make you want to look at them and skip everything else. So on the catchy side of it, I think we're just three peas in a pot here, and I'm really glad that we hooked up at the Peer Support Symposium and we've become friends.
Yeah.
You're up there in the Arctic tundra, I think, and we're down here in the Western Arctic tundra, but we've been able to stay in touch, and that's awesome.
Right. Yeah, I should say I'm in Toronto, Canada, and so we're close geographically. I maybe also should pop in there. I was a quarantine officer during the SARS outbreak, of which Toronto was a hotspot, and I'm an ICU nurse, so I'm not too far removed from what you do. But yes, interestingly enough, this quarantine officer bit is being useful now.
It's extremely useful, and you more so. You probably have more exposure than Annette and I did during the SARS thing just because of your absolute proximity to it. Mm-hmm. And that's a case where not only do you know as much as us, but far beyond. I mean, in general, but especially with this particular scenario we're in right now. Mm-hmm. I wanted to talk a little bit about the course that you set up, because originally it was a course that you put out and it was going to be for a very specific purpose, but then you changed the purpose and you made it free. So just quickly, if you can, summarize that, and I have a couple questions from it, because we had talked before, there's a lot of stuff on there, and it's all very valuable, but it can look like what it is. It can look like a lot. And so I went on today and created my profile, went through a few of the segments of it. So we'll get to that, but just break down that Reach for Resiliency edition that you put out for everybody.
So I have a 16-hour full program called Reach for Resiliency, and we were hearing a lot about supporting the friends and the family. So a year ago, we did some market research to see, is it true that family and friends want to be supported of first responders? And the answer was yes. So I didn't really want to create a program to sell. I was like, but let me sell it for charities for first responders, of which I wanted to give to the Illinois Firefighter peer support team, and start a scholarship fund for proactive research related to first responders. That was the intention, and then COVID changed everything. And so Wellth Management is really situated in the proactive piece of well-being. And I was like, how do I help right now since we're all largely reactive in the last couple of weeks? And I was like, I'll just throw up this course. It wasn't out there yet, but let me open it up. I let go of perfection because COVID also changed that. It's like it's not a time to be perfect, it's a time to be of service. And you're right. I think I need to change this course to really just it's content and conversation. And you're right. There's a lot of stuff in there, but there's no homework. There's nothing to worry about. You can drop in, take what you want, drop back out, come and go. And I'm adding to it weekly. So it'll be this evolving resource that will become big. You're right. I think there's probably close to 15 or 18 hours worth of stuff there already, but it's free.
It's free, and it's nice because most of the things are very digestible sized segments. There's a couple longer ones on there. I saw like a 45-minute, and some of the interviews you did are a little bit longer, but for the most part, it's very digestible, and you can devote your half hour or 40 minutes a day to it and really take away some really good stuff. For me, and I can't speak for everybody, but I've been in the fire service since 2003 and full time since 2008, and so I got a pretty good feeling of the people I work with and how I view things. And, the 4 parts of Devote December, we're talking about nutrition and exercise and then mindfulness. And mindfulness is something that is completely voluntary. And for most people, it's very abstract and very not woo-woo out there. It's a dedicated system and a dedicated practice, but it's just not a large part in the fire service. I mean, we're just getting yoga to be more accepted in the fire service. It's a very slow-moving train. What I'd like to do with these next couple of questions is close that gap a little bit from myself being very, very surface knowledge aware of it, and basically your universe where you live and what you think is extremely valuable to first responders. And so in your intro in the course, you give a very smart breakdown of who you are, what the course is about, and then you talked about a contraindication of the course being someone in a crisis state. And that really resonated with me because you go on there and say, listen, I'm not qualified at this level. I'm not qualified at this thing. I am exactly this, and this is how this course can assist you in your life. If you're in a crisis state, this course may not be for you. You need to find help in these areas. And I really wanted to get in that because I can say that day to day, I feel like I'm either in a crisis state or not, especially in the past month or so. Mm-hmm. Is that more of like a month-long progression or a clinical kind of designation of being in a crisis state? So I just wanted to ask you that because I could see a lot of people looking at it and saying, well, maybe I'm in a crisis state, maybe not. I think I'll just not do it because this thing is foreign to me anyways. So if you can just contextualize a little bit of that crisis state, I think that'd be helpful.
Right. Well, I think first responders are intuitively, they understand what a crisis is when it comes to mental health. So don't get too technical. It's that if you have suffered yourself as a first responder or a family loved member of a first responder, and you already know you're in deep doo-doo as far as your mental well-being, like you have clinical depression, you take pharmacotherapeutics for that, and you're unstable or unwell in this moment, or if you're suicidal, that's not the space for proactive approach. It's a space to be reactive and be in the pathogenic medical model, which means get the help you need. And there are many self-assessment tools out there that you can take. I think I have one linked, maybe not in that course, but I can add it. But if you just Google, mental health assessment or self-assessment, there'll be lots out there. But if you know that you would rather see a psychologist than listen to Wendy Lund talk about proactive wealth, listen to your gut. You likely know. And so I'm very clear that I'm not a counselor. That's not my training. However, what's important to note is the stuff we do in Reach for Resiliency and in my platform are largely the same principles that a psychologist would use if you are in difficulty with your mental well-being. And that's why I developed it. I'm like, if somebody's depressed or anxious and you look at the treatment that psychologists use, it's mostly mindfulness-based stuff. It's helping people figure out how to be with your thoughts, how they produce emotions, and then how to interrupt them, how to notice them when they show up, and use new tools of your mind and how you speak to yourself and how you produce these emotions, how it can be changed by your ability to pay attention and train the brain in a way that moves you out of those thoughts. So I was like, why don't we teach that to first responders before they get into trouble? Because they're also known in the literature and the evidence to be resiliency enhancing or strength based approaches to well being, which is different than saying, here, I'm selling you some curriculum. You do this and you'll forever be resilient. No. Bad days still happen to me. COVID is still a problem for me. I have days and moments where I light up, and I just need to learn how to mitigate and manage those emotional eruptions skillfully, as opposed to letting emotions overtake my control of the moment. And so mindfulness is like, can I notice the stuff and then play with it in a way that moves me back to center, moves me back to peace?